My backyard is my sanctuary. After grueling 60-hour weeks designing software, the meticulously manicured lawn, the vibrant flower beds my mother painstakingly tended, and, of course, the pool, were where I decompressed. It was a Friday afternoon, the sun was beating down, and I was finally about to dive into the cool, turquoise water when I heard it, a gate creaking open. Annoyed, I figured it was the neighbor's cat again, notorious for terrorizing the local bird population. I grabbed a towel and walked towards the back of the yard, ready to shoo it away. What I saw instead was a woman, a Karen in full bloom, standing poolside in a bright pink swimsuit that was, frankly, doing her no favors. Beside her stood a boy, maybe 10 years old, also in swimwear, looking equally bewildered. Both were dripping wet. Mortified and angry, I was quick to speak up. "Excuse me. What do you think you're doing? This is private property. How did you even get in here?" I demanded, my voice laced with the same weariness that comes with working crazy hours at work. The woman, without a hint of shame or apology, puffed out her chest and pointed a manicured finger at my pool. "This is unacceptable. This pool is far too dangerous and deep for my son. He nearly drowned. You need to fix this immediately so my son can swim." The sheer audacity of her statement took my breath away. Fix it? Fix what? This is my pool, on my property, built to my specifications. It's clearly marked with depth indicators. Your son shouldn't even be in it, let alone almost drown. What I'm trying to figure out is why you let him waltz into a stranger's backyard, I retorted, trying to keep my voice level. All I felt was annoyance. Not only had she intruded my property, but she was now telling me what to do on my own property and blaming me for her son almost drowning in my pool. Her face contorted with anger, the carefully applied makeup doing little to hide the escalating fury in her eyes. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. My son is traumatized. Your negligence could have killed him. You're lucky I don't sue you for attempted murder. That pool is a death trap." My jaw dropped. Attempted murder? This was beyond ridiculous. Before I could respond, she continued, "And frankly, it's disgusting that you have such a deep pool anyway. What are you trying to prove?" I stared at her, speechless, the simmering rage finally bubbling to the surface. "Get off my property now," I said, each word enunciated with icy precision. I pointed towards the gate, my hand shaking with anger. She huffed, grabbed her son's hand, and stomped towards the gate, muttering under her breath about calling the police. I watched them go, a sense of disbelief washing over me. Was this really happening? True to her word, 10 minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of my house. 2 officers, a man and a woman, approached my door. I explained the situation, calmly recounting the trespassing, the accusations, and the sheer entitlement of the woman. The officers listened patiently, but I could see a flicker of doubt in their eyes. It wasn't hard to figure out why a black man, a suburban house with a pool, and a distraught white woman claiming attempted murder due to dangerous water. "Sir, we understand your side of the story, but the woman, Ms. Henderson, is claiming that you knowingly created a dangerous situation for children and that her son was in imminent danger," the male officer said, his tone carefully neutral. "Knowing what? I don't even know these people. They trespassed onto my property. The pool is appropriately marked with depth warnings," I exclaimed, frustration mounting. The female officer chimed in. "Ms. Henderson also mentioned that you were uncooperative and confrontational." Uncooperative? After she walked into my backyard and accused me of trying to kill her kid? What was I supposed to do, offer her lemonade? I snapped, instantly regretting my tone. The situation quickly escalated. They asked to inspect the pool, which I reluctantly agreed to, knowing I had nothing to hide. They measured the depth, checked the markings, and took pictures. Ms. Henderson, along with her son, stood across the street, watching with smug expressions. I wanted to scream. After what felt like an eternity, the officers returned. "Sir, the pool does meet all local codes and regulations. However, Ms. Henderson is still pressing charges of reckless endangerment and creating a hazardous environment. We're going to have to take you down to the station for questioning. Reckless endangerment? This was insane. I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. I knew how these situations could play out. I'd seen the news, the videos. A black man accused of a crime, presumed guilty until proven innocent. Can't you see she's lying? She trespassed. This is ridiculous. I protested, but it was no use. As they led me to the police car, my eyes met Miss Henderson's. A triumphant smirk played on her lips. It was a look that chilled me to the bone. My anger turned into something else, a steely determination to clear my name and expose her lies. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. It was about justice. It was becoming clear that I had to do everything I could to protect myself from this woman. The interrogation room was exactly as you'd expect, cold, sterile, and designed to make you feel isolated. The officers asked the same questions over and over, trying to trip me up, searching for inconsistencies in my story. I answered as truthfully and calmly as I could, explaining every detail of what had happened. Hours passed, each one feeling like an eternity. I asked for a lawyer, which they begrudgingly allowed. My lawyer, a seasoned professional named Ms. Evans, arrived and immediately shut down the questioning. She advised me to remain silent and let her handle it. While Ms. Evans worked to get me released, I sat in a holding cell, stewing in my anger and frustration. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a Karen having a bad day. There was something else at play, something deeper and more sinister. As I sat there, I kept thinking about the smug look on Miss Henderson's face, a look that told me she was confident in her plan succeeding. That's when I knew I had to start my own investigation. I managed to get a message to a friend, Liam, a tech wizard who could find anything online. I asked him to dig into Ms. Henderson's background, to find anything that could help me understand why she was doing this. Liam was always up for a challenge, and I knew he was the right person for the job. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, Ms. Evans secured my release. The charges hadn't been dropped, but I was free to go home, pending further investigation. As I walked out of the police station, the cool night air felt like a breath of fresh air. But I knew the fight was far from over. I drove home, exhausted but determined to clear my name and expose Miss Henderson's lies. The next morning, I woke up early and started gathering any evidence I could find to support my case. Security camera footage, photos of my pool, anything that would prove I had done nothing wrong. The weight of the accusation felt heavy on my shoulders, but I refused to let it break me. I had to fight back, not just for myself, but for everyone who had ever been unfairly targeted because of their race. Liam called later that day, his voice buzzing with excitement. "I think I've found something, Alex. Something big." He emailed me a file, and as I opened it, I felt a chill run down my spine. It was a series of news articles, court documents, and social media posts detailing Ms. Henderson's past. It turned out that Karen was a seasoned con artist with a history of making false accusations and filing frivolous lawsuits. She had a pattern of targeting wealthy individuals, particularly those from minority backgrounds, in an attempt to extort money from them. One article described a similar incident where she had accused a Latino business owner of discrimination. Another detailed a case where she had falsely claimed a Jewish doctor had mishandled her medical care. Each case followed the same pattern: a false accusation, a public outcry, and then a settlement, often for a significant sum of money. It was clear that Ms. Henderson was a professional at playing the victim, and I was just her latest target. But the most disturbing discovery was about her son, the boy who had supposedly almost drowned in my pool. Liam had found social services records indicating that the boy, named Ethan, had been repeatedly neglected and abused. There were reports of unsanitary living conditions, lack of food, and even physical violence. The records showed that social services had tried to remove Ethan from Ms. Henderson's custody several times, but she had always managed to fight them off, often using her manipulative tactics and false accusations. As I read through the documents, I felt a surge of anger mixed with pity. I was furious at Ms. Henderson for her lies and manipulation, but I also felt incredibly sorry for Ethan, who was trapped in a cycle of abuse and neglect. It became clear that her stunt with my pool wasn't just about money or attention. It was about maintaining control over Ethan and preventing him from being taken away from her. I immediately contacted Ms. Evans and shared the information with her. She was shocked and disgusted, but also relieved. "This is exactly what we need, Alex. This will not only clear your name, but it will also put her behind bars and get that boy the help he desperately needs." The next day, Ms. Evans presented the evidence to the police. They were initially skeptical, but after reviewing the documents and verifying Liam's findings, they launched a full-scale investigation into Ms. Henderson's past. Within hours, they had enough evidence to arrest her for fraud, child endangerment, and making false statements. I watched with a grim satisfaction as she was led away in handcuffs, the smug look on her face replaced with a mixture of fear and disbelief. This time, she couldn't talk her way out of it. The truth was finally catching up with her, and there was nowhere left to run. Ethan was taken into protective custody, and I later learned that he was placed in a loving foster home. He was finally safe and getting the care and attention he deserved. It broke my heart to think about what he had been through, but I was relieved that he was finally free from Ms. Henderson's clutches. The charges against me were immediately dropped, and I received a formal apology from the police department. The local news picked up the story, and for a brief moment, I became a local hero, the black man who had stood up to a racist Karen and won. But for me, it wasn't about the fame or the recognition. It was about justice, about protecting myself and others from being unfairly targeted. Ms. Henderson went to trial a few months later. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against her, detailing her long history of fraud and abuse. She tried to defend herself, but her lies quickly unraveled under the scrutiny of the courtroom. In the end, the jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, and her days of manipulating the system were finally over. The aftermath of the incident was surreal. I received an outpouring of support from friends, family, and even strangers who had followed the story in the news. My business thrived as people rallied behind me, and I found myself speaking at community events, sharing my story and advocating for racial justice. But the most rewarding part of the experience was knowing that I had helped Ethan escape a life of misery. I made sure to keep in touch with his social worker, and I learned that he was thriving in his new foster home. He was doing well in school, making friends, and finally experiencing the love and stability he had always deserved. One warm summer evening, a few months after the trial, I was sitting by my pool, watching the sunset. The water shimmered in the fading light, and the air was filled with the scent of jasmine and roses. I thought about everything that had happened, the anger, the fear, and the ultimate triumph of justice. I realized that Karen's actions, as horrible as they were, had ultimately led to something good. They had exposed a pattern of abuse and manipulation, brought a criminal to justice, and given a young boy a chance at a better life. As I sipped my drink and watched the stars begin to appear in the sky, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The pool, once a symbol of contention, now represented something else, a reminder of the power of resilience. I knew there would always be challenges to face, but I was ready to meet them head-on, armed with the knowledge that justice, though sometimes delayed, would ultimately prevail. And as for the Karens of the world, they need to know their time is up.